Hi everyone, a very good morning to all of you. My name is Sydney, Executive Director of CFA Society Malaysia. A very warm welcome to all of you and thank you for taking the time to join us today. We are pleased to have a special session lined up on composed performance, the hidden variable separating good from great. And before I introduce our very special guest, just a quick note on some housekeeping matters. So this session will run for approximately 1.5 hours, comprising about 1 hour of presentation, followed by a 30-minute Q&A segment. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available at CFA Society Malaysia's YouTube channel at a later date. May I kindly ask that all of you keep your microphones muted throughout the session. If you have any questions, don't worry. Please feel free to post them in the chat box, and we will address them during the Q&A segment. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Kal Ghayur, CFA, FSIP, is the founder and CEO of Vocalmify and a finance veteran with over 35 years of experience. He has previously served as Managing Director at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, MSCI, and HSBC. He's also the former CEO of Westpeak Global Advisors and currently leads Simple Clear Investing and Vocalmify, where he focuses on empowering investors and advancing performance under pressure through the composed performance framework. Kal has held multiple leadership roles with the CFA Institute, including serving 2 terms on its board of governors and was the founding president of CFA UK. He holds a master's in econometrics and MBA in finance and is a CFA charter holder. With that, I will now hand over the session to Kal. So Kal, over to you. You can show your presentation deck.
All right. Thank you so much, Sydney, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to attend this presentation. Here we go. Okay, so as Sydney mentioned, today's topic is about performance. Let me start this topic by asking you to reflect on something really, really important, and yet very little time is being spent on it. If you look at your work life, how much time are we spending thinking about our clients, about our portfolios? We optimize the investment processes, we optimize the investment portfolios, and so on and so forth. But have we ever asked the question, how do we optimize our own performance? What is the risk to our performance? And how can we enhance the return that we get from our performance, from which everyone can benefit, not only our clients, ourselves, our teams, our organizations, and so on. So if you reflect on that question and try to analyze what is the biggest risk to your individual performance, maybe you'll come to the conclusion, as I did, that the biggest risk to our performance is that somehow we lose access to the skill set that we have developed over the years. We spend so much time developing our skill set, our education. We get all these degrees, we have knowledge, we have experience, we develop all the expertise. But imagine if in some situation under stress or under pressure, we lose access to all that skill set and all that talent. And you can understand that if that happens, then our performance suffers. So that is the major topic that I want to discuss today, the main area. How is it that we can lose access to our skill set? So the performance problem that we have in the industry is very straightforward, given this opening remark that I just made. In our work environment, we often see smart people underperforming at some really high stakes moments. We are all really well prepared when we go into meetings or client meetings or other meetings, and somehow we lose clarity under pressure, right? Talent appears to disappear exactly in the crucial moments when we need it the most. So, and these are all situations that we have experienced probably ourselves, but also that we have seen around us. So, why is that happening? Well, it's not skill that is failing because your skill set is there, your talents are there. What is failing is access to that skill set and those talents under pressure. That is where that's where some of these problems are arising from. So the traditional performance model that we have been introduced to and that we have been sold over the years is that performance is a function of skill. And here I'm defining skill in a very broad sense, right? Skill is your education, your expertise, your experience, etc. So performance is a function of skill. And the assumption is that if you are skilled and talented, then you will perform consistently under different scenarios. The reality, however, is very different. The reality is that in pressure moments, your access to the skill set is blocked. And because of that, your performance can suffer. The limiting factor is the nervous system and composure. It's not the skill set. So, in the composed performance model, performance is now defined as a function of skill and composure. Skill defines what you can do. That's your skill set. Composure determines whether you can do it under pressure. And the impact of composure is a multiplicative effect. Notice that it's not skill plus composure, it's skill times composure, with the composure factor varying between 0 and 1. If you're composed, you have full access to your skills, and if you lose composure and you crumble under pressure, then it doesn't matter what your skill set is, your performance suffers. So, let's talk about composure and what do we actually mean by composure. So, composure is the ability to consistently remain cognitively clear, that your thinking is very clear. Remain emotionally calm. You're in a state of being where your emotions are steady and you are in control, both physically, you're physically regulated, you're emotionally regulated, and you're mentally regulated. That is what composure is. It is not a feeling or anything like that. It's a state where your thinking is clear, your emotions are steady, and you are regulated in different areas, physical, emotional, and so on. So that's the kind of composure that we need to access under different scenarios, but especially under pressure. Now, we often hear in the workplace people saying, oh, it's so interesting because John is so calm and so composed all the time. He has this personality trait, whereas someone else doesn't. That's a complete misconception. Composure is not a personality trait. It is not a talent. It is not a temperament, and it is not something that you are born with. That's not what composure is. The way that I have just outlined composure, it is actually a skill that can be trained and acquired. Now, the importance of composure is that with composure and without composure, if you're in a situation, then it results in a clear performance gap simply because if you lose composure in a pressure or high stakes situation, then you are susceptible to an emotional hijack, to narrowed cognition, thinking, to poor communication, to reactive behavior, and so on and so forth. And all of those things can lead to a performance gap. Now, let me give you an example from the highly competitive field of sports and lessons from some elite performance that hopefully will help you understand what we are talking about here in terms of the difference between the good and the great and the performance under composure. Under pressure. So, if I take the example of tennis, we have Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, the three greatest players of all time in the sport of tennis. Did you know that all three of them have roughly won about 54% of the points that they have played throughout their career? 54%. That's pretty close to 50-50. And yet, they have won 84% of the matches that they played. So how is that happening? Well, it's happening because these guys understand that in order to win matches, they have to win the critical points. And it is their performance during those critical points that leads them to become the greatest players of all time. Djokovic was once asked, why is it that you are the best tiebreak player in the history of the sport? And you seem to be winning tiebreaks and winning all these crucial points. So what kind of training do you do to get to that level? And his response was, it has got nothing to do with tennis. It has got nothing to do with the technique, with the skill set of playing tennis. It has all to do with composure and clarity of thinking. He explained that he uses conscious breathing in order to help him during a match to regulate himself and to regulate his composure. In between points, he has 25 seconds to use conscious breathing techniques to lower his heart rate, to decrease his respiratory rate, to increase the oxygen exchange that's taking place in the bloodstream, to get more oxygen flowing into the brain so he can think clearly as to how he needs to play the next point. And all of this is happening within 25 seconds. So how do you do that? Well, you do that because, like Djokovic, you go and train composure. You go and train composure, and then you apply it in real life high pressure situations. So that's the importance of composure and winning the critical moments. So the critical reframes that I would submit to you in this part of my presentation is that under pressure, willpower is not enough. If you are under pressure and your heart rate is elevated and your chest is tight and you have shallow breathing, you can't get enough oxygen in, well, you can't just use your willpower to reduce your heart rate. You can't do it. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system when your nervous system is under duress, because it is physical. It's physiological. Okay? So performance regulation and composure regulation in many cases must start biologically. You have to do something physical, not cognitively, not willpower. And composure is a trainable nervous system skill. So let's now talk about that. So what exactly is composed performance? Composed performance is the trained ability to to consistently access composure in real-time situations. So how do you train yourself to acquire this ability and this capability? Well, you do it in 2 steps. First, you condition composure, meaning you train composure. And think of it as strength training. If you want to go and lift 300 pounds in a competition, you don't just show up at the competition and try to lift 300 pounds. That obviously doesn't work. You train in the gym. You start with 50, with 100. You train your body, your muscles to be able to support that kind of load and tension and still remain absolutely relaxed. So you train all of those things in the gym before you show up at a competition. So it's exactly the same thing. You train composure under low pressure, and then you apply the techniques that you have used to train composure in real life situations to regulate composure in order to deliver your best peak performance. So that's the process. Now, understand that just as winning the critical points is what gives this tremendous edge and distinguishes the good from the great in the sports world, it's actually very similar in the work environment. If you are good at winning the high pressure moments in the work environment, then over time those winnings compound and give you a tremendous edge. And that is why it is my firm belief that composed performance is the new competitive edge. If you can learn the skill of regulating, conditioning, and managing your nervous system and your composure in order to improve your decision making and your performance, then you have a tremendous competitive edge in the work space. This is very similar to some of the things that we've talked about in the past in terms of what gives competitive edge in a work environment. For example, we used to talk about emotional intelligence. So it's kind of like that. This is now even more important because our lives have become very stressful, both our work lives and our professional and our family lives, personal lives. So this ability to train ourselves to access composure so that we can access our skills under pressure is becoming more and more important, and as I mentioned, is, in my opinion, the new competitive edge. So how do we do that? How do we condition and train composure? So there are 5 levers of composure. The reason why there are 5 levers of composure has to do with how composure manifests itself, or loss of composure manifests itself. So let me give you some examples and some situations to help you understand how you could potentially lose composure, and then identify one of the levers that will help you regulate or reattain or reset composure. So here, think of this situation. You're about to walk into a meeting where you expect conflict. It could be a meeting with a colleague, it could be a meeting with a client where you have to where you have to explain underperformance. It could be a meeting with your boss, a performance review, for example, etc. So in anticipation of that meeting, your nervous system gets activated straight away because your nervous system in your mind is interpreting the moment as some kind of a threat. So what happens during that activation process? Well, your heart rate is elevated because you're anticipating conflict. Your chest gets tight. Your stomach seems weird, etc., etc. Your breathing becomes very shallow. So that's how you lose composure in a moment like that. So, in order to regain composure, the lever that works the best in a situation like that is breath. You do conscious breathing, just like Djokovic does, and you activate the vagus nerve, which then activates the parasympathetic trigger, and it calms you down. And the breath, conscious breathing, and different techniques around conscious breathing, which we will go over in a minute, have been shown in science and in research to be extremely effective in dealing with that kind of loss of composure. So that's why breath is an essential lever for composure regulation. Another way in which you can lose composure is in situations where you are anticipating that you are going to be observed. And your nervous system starts to look at yourself from the inside. How am I appearing? How are people seeing me? How am I sounding? Etc. And that again triggers the nervous system. It creates tension in your voice, it creates tension in your throat, in the jaw, in the chest, etc., etc. And if you lose that kind of composure in a situation like that, you end up sounding incredible. You don't sound confident. And if you don't sound confident, the people listening to you do not feel that you are a credible presenter. So, what happens? How do you control some of those things? Well, you do it through the voice lever, through vibration, through resonance. Voice is the only lever which can give you vibration and resonance that gets rid of all the tension that you have in the chest, in the throat, in the jaw, etc., which affects not only how you sound, but also how you appear in public. So that's the role of this lever. Now, another way of losing composure is in the posture and alignment of the physical body. When there are certain situations where we feel that our body is collapsing because we are under stress and under pressure. As soon as the body collapses, it sends a signal to the nervous system of a threat. And that collapse in the posture and the alignment of the body results in a loss of composure, which could lead to many different things, including cognitive decline. So the idea of using the body as a lever to regulate composure is through grounding techniques. How do we make your posture better, your alignment better, and through grounding techniques, through stillness techniques that will help regain the composure in those situations. Our mind is also a source of loss of composure. The reason is that our mind is always active. It is always engaging with thoughts and so on and so forth. And there are so many thoughts in our minds all the time, right? And all these thoughts sometimes trigger a response in the nervous system, which is one of a threat is coming, we have to prepare. And it creates emotional imbalance many times. The problem is not that we have a lot of thoughts that are going around in our mind. The problem is that we do not know how to not interact with our thoughts. It's perfectly fine for thoughts to come in our minds. But if we don't interact with them, they go away. The moment you start interacting with them, that's when the nervous system gets activated and it can result in loss of composure. So this lever, the mindset lever, reframes the threat, the thinking. It helps us understand how we can not engage with our thoughts. It helps us understand that when a thought comes where we feel threatened in some way, we can give it a different interpretation. We can give it a different perspective, which controls that and helps us regulate composure. And there are techniques for doing that, and we'll go over some of those in a minute. And then finally, one of the most important levers is focus. Now, understand this very carefully. Loss of focus means that you are temporarily less intelligent. Internalize this a little bit. When you lose focus, you are less smart, you are less intelligent. Why? Because when you lose focus, you lose your ability to think along two main dimensions: duration and depth. You cannot think for very long if you lose focus. You cannot think deeply if you lose focus. A deep thinker has to approach a problem from multiple perspectives, taking into account multiple factors in order to deeply associate himself or herself with that particular problem and find the solution. So your ability to think deeply and for long periods of time is compromised if you lose focus. So the question is, and that of course is a loss of composure. So the question is, why do we lose focus? We lose focus not because we are distracted. We lose focus because we do not know how to deal with distraction. We haven't trained ourselves in dealing with distraction. How many of you consciously do some practices or exercises during your work day where you learn how to deal with distraction? And yet, if you don't, you get distracted, you lose focus, and that's where your thinking capabilities are affected, negatively affected. So that's why focus is a really important lever of composure regulation. So look, breath, voice, and body are known as bottom-up levers of composure regulation. Why? Because they start from the body and they send a signal to the brain that we are safe. We are in a safety place. And there is no need for you to get activated, for the nervous system to get activated. Mindset is a top-down lever of composure regulation. It starts with the mind and it sends a signal to the body to calm down. It's okay. We are reframing threat and pressure so that the body can relax. And focus is a hybrid variable or lever. Sometimes it works in a bottom-up sense, and sometimes it works on a top-down sense. So, now let's talk about how do we implement all of this in real life. So in my framework, in the Composed Performance Framework, I have two clear different segments. So one is composure conditioning, which we've talked about, which is training composure in low pressure. And the analogy that I used is it's like strength training in the gym. And then we have the regulation segment, where we apply what we have learned in the gym in real life situations to regulate our composure and reset our composure. So foundations are the techniques that we use to condition composure, train composure in the gym. And these are very short 3-4 minute exercises or practices which focus on one lever at a time. So breath, voice, mindset, focus, etc., so that we can fully understand how to master that particular lever in a low pressure environment. And then once we have done that, then we apply those techniques in the form of boosts, which are practices which are also short, 3 to 5 minutes, but now these practices use multi-lever techniques in order to create something that will help you in a particular situation. For example, you're about to go into a meeting where you expect conflict. Well, there is a boost for that, which will use breath, voice, different techniques, focus, and so on to help you regulate composure in that particular situation. So foundations are designed to train, and boosts are designed to deploy that training in real time. So let's now quickly talk about how composure conditioning works, and then I will walk you through some practices here in a minute. So as I mentioned, think about a situation where your heart rate is elevated, your breathing becomes fast and shallow because you're anticipating a threat. You're anticipating a situation where, for example, you might confront conflict. So in that case, what we have to do as a first step is we have to reverse the stress physiology. So whatever is happening physically in our bodies, the elevated heart rate and so on, we have to reverse that first of all in order to control composure. How do we do that? Well, we use breath for that. We use slower breathing. We use longer exhales. We use reduced reactivity and so on. All these techniques have been very well documented in the academic literature. There is a lot of science that supports all these techniques. So that's step one. You have to start composure regulation physiologically by reversing the stress signals. And then we have to normalize those stress signals. What does that mean? What that means is that when we train composure in a low pressure environment, we actually have to train it in a way where we bring in high pressure signals, but train our body to remain and our nervous system to remain calm and composed. So we know that when we are in a stress situation, we have air hunger, right? When we have shortness of breath and we go like this is air hunger, right? Where there's not enough oxygen getting into the body because we have lost composure in some way in a given situation. So what do? Well, in the gym, in a low pressure environment, we create conditions of mild air hunger and train our nervous system to remain calm and composed despite the conditions and signals of stress. So this is a really important part of conditioning composure as well. So now let's do some examples and some applications. In this segment of my presentation, I implore you, request you to keep a very open mind and try everything that I'm going to do here with me so that you can get a sense of all of these things. Okay, so one of the things that we do in terms of breath foundations is before we undertake any of this exercise, we should really understand our own breathing. What is our natural breathing pattern? So for this, I want you now to please close your eyes and for a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds or so, just breathe naturally. Just close your eyes and breathe naturally. Now, as you breathe, focus on the duration of your inhale and your exhale. Is the inhale and the exhale the same length? Is it 1 or 2 seconds of inhale and 1 or 2 seconds of exhale? Is your inhale longer than your exhale? Is your exhale longer than your inhale? Is there a natural pause before your inhale? Or is there a natural pause before your exhale? Okay, thank you for doing that. So, my sense is that most of you will have noticed that your inhale and your exhale is roughly about 1 to 2 seconds. So basically like this. And they are roughly of equal duration. And there is, generally speaking, a very slight pause in between the inhale and the exhale. And sometimes people also observe a very slight pause after the exhale before the next inhale. So this is how we breathe naturally. This, unfortunately, is also known as shallow breathing or unconscious breathing. One of the problems in this kind of breathing is that it is not particularly conducive to high levels of oxygen exchange, to high levels of carbon dioxide leaving the body, and high levels of oxygen going to the brain to improve our thinking capabilities. So what has been studied in the academic literature is what we call extended exhale breathing, and it has shown multiple benefits, such as all the things that I've just outlined. So the way that the extended exhale works is that we breathe in for much longer than we would in our unconscious breathing pattern. So if we breathe in for 2 seconds, then now in conscious breathing we will breathe in for 4 seconds, and then we will exhale first of all for 8 seconds. Okay, so we are extending the exhale. The exhale is twice as long as the inhale. And this particular technique has been shown to be very effective in reducing stress and pressure, but also bringing in a lot of getting rid of carbon dioxide, stale carbon dioxide, because you're exhaling fully and then bringing in new oxygen. So let's do this together. I will count and you inhale for 4 and exhale for 8. Ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Now we're going to insert a hold after the inhale. And this particular technique has been shown to deepen the breathing and to increase the parasympathetic trigger in our nervous system. In other words, to increase the relaxation effect of this kind of breathing. So what you should notice this time is that when you breathe in for 4 and hold for 4 and then exhale for 8 through the mouth, that you should feel a release of tension from your body. So let's try it. Ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very good. One more time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Excellent. So I hope you guys may have noticed that that it felt way more, much deeper breathing and more deeper relaxation stress. So now let's move on to the next aspect of voice. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I missed one thing. Okay, so reduced breathing. So here, the second exercise for breath foundations is an example of how we would create or how we would normalize a stress signal. So as I mentioned, that when in a situation, sometimes we lose composure because we lose our breathing and all the problems that it brings. Now that happens because our breathing becomes extremely shallow and it creates tremendous amount of air hunger in the body. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that air hunger ourselves in a training environment and then train our bodies and the nervous system to remain calm and relaxed. And one really easy way of doing it is to shorten your breath. So if my normal breath is like this, which is 1 to 2 seconds of about 2 seconds of inhale and 2 seconds of exhale, well, I'm going to shorten it to 1 second or less, and that will create an air hunger. So look, instead of doing my normal thing, which is I will do this. And I will do this for about 20 to 30 seconds, and it will create air hunger. My body will want more air intake. But I am training the body to not to have that air hunger, but still remain composed, for the nervous system to train calm. So that's the kind of training that needs to be done in the gym, so to speak, in order to have proper composure regulation in a real-time situation. Now, let's move on to voice. So when it comes to voice, we are talking about vibration and resonance. So let's go back to our breathing technique, and this time we're going to incorporate a sigh, because a sigh is going to help us release even more pressure and more stress from the body. The vocalization is going to help you, through vibration and resonance, feel even more relaxed and breathe even more deeply. So we are going to do this. We are going to inhale for 4, and then on the exhale we are going to do a breath sigh. A breath sigh is like this. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to do a breath sigh over a count of over no count, but we will inhale for 4. Okay, so ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and breath sigh. Good. Now this next one, let's do a nasal sigh. A nasal sigh goes like this. Okay, so ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and sigh. Now do a ah sigh. Ah, ah. Ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and sigh. Ah. Now all of these things should make it more pronounced, the parasympathetic response more pronounced. Another technique which has been documented in the literature and has tremendous benefits is a hum, a resonant hum. It's just a simple nasal sound. So I want you to hum at the most comfortable pitch for you, whatever just comes naturally to you, and feel the resonance and the vibration in the mouth, in the jaw, in the nose, in the throat, in the chest. Okay? So let's just hum and feel the vibration. Okay. Now let's do it in a rhythmic fashion. So again, we will inhale for 4 and then we will hum for 8. Ready? Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hum. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Now, this kind of humming, and by the way, you can lower the sound. If you're in a work environment, humming is equally effective in a very, very low volume because the vibrations are internal. So instead of going very loudly, you can also just go like this. So if you're sitting at your desk, no one can hear you, but you're still humming. Now, the reason why humming is so effective is because humming creates vibrations and resonance, which essentially is the equivalent of massaging your body from the inside. So just as you have a massage on the outside to relax your muscles and so on, humming serves the purpose and the role of massaging your body and your nerves and your nervous system from the inside. That's why it is such an effective lever of composure regulation. Now, this focus thing is really important. As I said, this is one of the most dangerous loss of composure because it affects decision making and our ability to perform. So, in this particular case, what is happening is that we lose composure. We lose composure because of loss of focus, and the loss of focus could be because of distractions and so on. Now, we have to train composure to keep a focus over a long period of time when that happens. Okay? So we have to train our ability to not lose our focus. So there are two types of anchors at least two types of anchors that can be used to train our focus. One is a physical attention anchor. Okay? So in this case, particularly here, in this exercise, we are just going to breathe naturally, but we are going to focus our attention at the sensation of the air at our nostrils. So what we should feel, what all of you should feel, is when you inhale, it's cold air going in. And when you exhale, it's warm air going out. So keep your attention to this physical anchor and breathe for about 10-15 seconds. Ready? Breathe. And keep your attention at your nostrils. When you do that, and you train yourself to do that, you will recognize over time that your mind gets very comfortable, very steady. You are not being pulled away in all kinds of different directions by thoughts that are coming to your mind, because you are anchored onto something physical, which is in this case the sensation at the nostrils. Once you do it for 15 seconds, you can increase to 30 seconds, to 1 minute, and get your mind to relax. Now let's take a visual anchor. Visual anchors are very important because our vision is directly linked to our ability to think. You may have heard about the term vision, tunnel vision. Well, tunnel vision is not only, it's actually a physical thing, which is peripheral vision loss. So you can't see in the periphery, you can only see in a tunnel is in front of you. But tunnel vision also refers to a very narrow-minded mindset. Okay, your ability to think is compromised. You can't see multiple perspectives. You have tunnel vision. So that's why practicing to maintain visual anchors or maintain visual focus is really important to enhance your own decision-making processes, abilities. So in this particular case, we are going to breathe in and breathe naturally, but I want you to focus on the letter O on the screen here. Just bring all your attention and all your focus on the letter O and just breathe naturally. But don't stare at the letter O. Keep your gaze very soft. It's almost like you're falling asleep, but your focus and attention is very intense. Just focus on the letter O. Now, I want you to go even deeper in terms of your focus and your attention. Instead of focusing on the letter O, focus on the empty space inside the letter. So go inside the letter and focus on that space, the empty space. Okay, so this is a visual anchor. Now let's do an exercise where we shift between physical and visual anchors. Okay, so you're going to start, breathe naturally, and I will give you the cue. When I say physical anchor, you focus on the sensation of the breath at the nostrils. And when I say visual anchor, you shift your focus to the empty space inside the letter O. But you keep your eyes on the letter O all the time. Okay? So even when your focus shifts to your physical anchor, your vision is still on the letter O. Okay? So ready? Start by breathing naturally. Look at the letter O. Very soft gaze, no stress, no tension. Now focus your attention on the physical anchor, your nostrils. Now move your attention to the visual anchor and go inside the letter O. Once again, move back to the physical anchor, the nostrils. And now go back to the visual anchor inside the letter O. So these are the kinds of focus techniques and training that we need to do. And of course, I'm starting with some very basic ones. But as we go deeper and deeper into the conditioning mode of composure, we learn more advanced, more sophisticated techniques about how to maintain our focus, which then improves our ability to think for long periods of time, but also to think deeply. And that's how we become better decision makers. Now, let's move on to a couple of examples of body foundations. So, as I mentioned, when your nervous system gets threatened or feels threatened, your body tends to collapse. And that creates even more stress and tension into the nervous system and the body and the muscles and so on. So, one of the techniques that is used in order to send a signal of safety to the nervous system is called grounding. Okay? So you ground yourself in order to tell your nervous system that, hey, it's okay, we are safe, and you can relax. So grounding works as follows. Move a little forward to the edge of your seat. So move forward to the edge of your seat and sit completely upright. Think of somebody pulling you up with a string, okay? Straight up. And put your hands on your thighs. Now, press your feet into the ground. You're grounding. You press your feet into the ground as if you're about to get up from the chair. But you're not really getting up. You're just about to get up. And so put the pressure on your feet. Now, press your hands on your legs at the same time. And hold this position for about 15 to 20 seconds. Now, even though we are putting pressure on our feet to ground ourselves and we're putting pressure from our hands, the idea here is to remain completely relaxed despite the tension that we are creating in the muscles and the body. We are grounding ourselves to send a safety signal despite the tension. This is a very physical way of regaining composure when your composure appears to be lost because of your posture and your alignment. And by the way, your posture and alignment is also something that people can very easily see. And people can very easily see that there is something happening. The second technique, which is really efficient from a body perspective, is what is called settling and softening the body through stillness. Stillness is one of the most efficient and simplest techniques to actually relax your body and to relax and get rid of the tension that is created by stress and pressure. So for this, just again, sit up straight at the edge of your seat and breathe naturally. And now just close your eyes and remain completely still for 20 seconds. Do not move anything. If you feel the urge to move anything, resist it. And try to relax. Completely still. Now, as you come back, you should feel settled. You should feel softened. If you do this exercise 2 or 3 times daily for just 20-30 seconds, or even in the middle of a meeting where you are feeling a little bit on edge because the meeting is going on forever, or it's getting boring or whatever, try this. You will feel instant difference, instantly. Okay, finally, mindset foundations. So what does mindset foundations do? So, as I mentioned, a lot of sometimes loss of composure is caused because of our mindset, our brain. Our brain has a tendency to overestimate risk, if I can talk in investment terms. So it overestimates risk in the sense that it places way more emphasis on negative outcomes as opposed to positive outcomes. Okay? So what we have to do is, when thoughts come to our mind, we have to learn to not engage with them. Because the moment we start engaging with the thoughts, our mind then starts to take us down the road of overestimating risk and creating a crisis when none really exists. Okay? And that leads to loss of composure, loss of our cognitive abilities, etc., etc. So there are very simple techniques to not engage with the thoughts. So think of your mind as a highway. On the highway there are cars coming and going, and that's your mind. Thoughts are coming and going. If you just watch them and let them come and go, nothing happens. But if you stop a car and start asking questions from the driver, where are you going? How was your day? Blah, blah, blah. Then you get sucked into the story. You become part of that driver's story, and now you've created a whole set of problems. So the way to not engage with the thoughts is to, number one, train yourself to not, every time a thought comes, you can go to your physical anchor, like the nostril. You can go to your visual anchor, like the letter O, and inside the letter O, and use focus as one way of not engaging with the thought. The other way is to create, as soon as the thought appears, just give it a neutral label. For example, I had a really bad meeting with my boss, all right? And now the meeting is done, and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm ruminating. I'm going over that meeting. I'm thinking of, oh my God, I should have said this. I should have said that. Oh, my boss misunderstood what I was saying, etc., etc. The moment has ended. There is nothing you can do about that particular moment. Sure, if some misinterpretation took place, misunderstanding took place, you can address it next time you have the opportunity. But for now, thinking about that meeting and letting your mind be sucked into it is only creating a set of problems that you don't need, because it's affecting your recovery. It's affecting your resilience and your ability to move on and remain efficient in your performance. So what do? As soon as that thought comes that you had a bad meeting with your boss, you label it something neutral. You just go interaction. And as soon as you do that, you will see that you have disengaged from the thought. The trick here is that the label has to be neutral. So you can't give a label like problem. So the thought comes that you had a bad meeting with your manager and you label it problem, then of course your mind is going into the problem mode. But if you label it something very neutral, like interaction, that's it, then you disengage from the thought. If that doesn't work, there is another technique which is called creating distance from the thought. So a thought comes in, I had a bad interaction with bad meeting with my manager. All you have to do is to simply say to yourself, I observed the thought that I had an interaction. That's all. I'm just observing the thought. Just say it out aloud. It helps you create space from the thought, and it helps you not engage with the thought. And when you do not engage with the thought actually goes away. It disappears within seconds. Okay? And if it comes back, you do exactly the same thing. Now, the other technique in terms of mindset is what we call reframing a perspective. Lindsay Davenport, the famous tennis player, was representing the US in the Davis Cup final long time ago, and she felt under pressure. And so she calls Billie Jean King, who happens to be the captain of the Davis team, women's team at that time, and says, "Hey, Billie, I feel tremendous amount of pressure. I am playing in the finals. I'm representing my country. What if I lose? What if I can't perform? What if if I crumble under pressure?" And Billie turns around and says, "Hey, think of this situation as a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. You, through years and years of training, you have put yourself in a situation where you can represent your country. You should be so proud. It's a privilege." Think of this reframing of the mindset. The moment you think that this match is going to be a high pressure situation, or what if I crumble under pressure, now the nervous system is triggered and you have created an environment where you are susceptible to losing composure. On the other hand, if you go into the situation saying, "Hey, man, I've created this situation with my hard work. This is an opportunity for me." And now you go into this situation with the right mindset where your composure is boosted as opposed to lost. So these are the so if you have to walk into a really difficult client meeting, or if you're presenting to a client, you're pitching to a client, go with a really positive mindset and reframe the challenge. Okay, I went very extensively into a lot of practices and exercises, so I realized that we are running a little late on time. So I think I'm going to stop here and maybe do some of the boost and situational boosts in some kind of a follow-up session. But let me just conclude very briefly by simply restating that really the central message of this presentation is that performance is not only a function of skill, it is a function of skill times composure. Skill determines what you can do, but composure determines whether you can do it in a given situation, especially under pressure. So composure is the variable that determines outcome. The good news, the very good news, is that composure is actually trainable. It is not something that you are either born with or not. So it is something that you can train and acquire. And in that context, it is also a skill. So it's enhancing your skill set if you can also acquire the skill of managing your composure. It can be trained and managed through 5 levers. Those are the 5 levers that address the various ways in which composure is lost in different situations. And again, the really good news is that the practices and exercises that can give you composure regulation are really simple and easy to do. Of course, they require practice if you want to become really good at it, but they are easy to do. And hopefully you've recognized that in that session. So the end result is that skill doesn't always deliver consistent peak performance. That's not true. Given skill, given your talents, composure is the variable that determines consistency. That's why composed performance is the new competitive edge. Now, before we go into Q&A, let me also mention that once we start talking about composure and training composure and deploying composure before certain situations and so on, then obviously there is a need that arises for some kind of a tool that helps you, guides you through all the different foundational practices, and through all the situational boosts and so on. So I felt compelled to actually create that tool myself. So I have created an app, and the pilot of that app is going to be launched next week. It's called Vocamify. And in that app, we have hundreds of foundational exercises. So foundations relating to breath, voice, focus, and these are all guided practices, guided exercises that you can perform in your work environment. And you have 72 situational boosts, which refer to different situations. You're about to walk into a meeting where you expect conflict. Well, here is a boost that will help you reset or retain composure as you walk into that meeting. Again, very short 3-5 minute boosts. The app has a lot of science and articles and insights, all the science that has been done in the research. And if you want to pilot the app, you can go to vocamify.com and register to pilot the app. And if you trial the pilot, we will give you and help us improve the product and help yourself improve the product, because in the end, hopefully it's going to be beneficial for you as well. Then we will give you a subscription to the app free, complimentary subscription. And we are also going to give tremendous amount of discounts to all the members of the CFA societies worldwide, and also benefits for the societies themselves. So this is all just part of some of the activities that I do to give back to the profession that has been extremely kind to me. So with that, Sydney, maybe I can finally stop and open it up for Q&A, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kal. There have been 3 questions in the chat group. Perhaps I would just read out the first one from Raj Kumar. He asked, how many iterations of the 20 grounded awareness exercise should be done per day?
How many? Sorry, I missed the first part.
How many iterations of the 20s grounded awareness exercise? I think the ones you shared earlier. So how many should one be doing per day to get used to that training?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So look, the idea is that we need to spend some amount of time every single day to practice all these different exercises. Now, the way in the app, the way that we have it structured is that the app will suggest to you certain exercises that you can do every single day. And we start, the way that it is structured in the app is that you will always do breath work. You will always be introduced to some kind of breathing technique, because breathing is one of the best and most efficient ways of regaining physical composure. So when you lose composure, which starts physiologically, that's the hardest one to control. Then breath work is very efficient in doing that. So we would recommend that you do one foundational breath exercise every single day, which is about 3 to 5 minutes. And then you do one another exercise for one other lever, which is also 3 to 5 minutes every day. So for every single day, at a minimum, we recommend that you do one breath and one other lever exercise for a total of 6 to 10 minutes. That's the minimum. Now, if you have time, then definitely do one exercise relating to each lever every single day. Okay? Let me give you one other very simple example which hopefully will help you understand what I'm talking about. I would suggest to you that each one of you should take a cold shower every single morning. And look, I'm looking at the face of Sydney. She's going, no.
And our weather here is so much warmer than where you are at. Still no. Okay.
Now let me explain why I say that. So, here is the reason. The moment you think of a cold shower, you start going, oh my God, you start tensing up and your nervous system gets activated because what? You're expecting discomfort. You are expecting a threat, right? So the idea is that if you take a simple cold shower, 30 seconds, every single day, you are training your body to remain calm and composed in under physical discomfort. And once you do it for 2-3 weeks or even less, a week or so, you will realize that actually you feel no threat at all. Your body is still in discomfort. It still feels cold. It still is not pleasant. But your nervous system is not threatened by it anymore. That is conditioning. So just taking a 30-second cold shower is something that can actually help you with composure and in the work environment. So that's what we're talking about here. So these are all things that we haven't really thought about because we don't think of composure as a performance variable. But now we think of it as a performance variable, so now we have to train for it, acquire that skill.
Thanks, Cal. Yeah, maybe I should try it one day and I'll let you know. Okay, moving on, we have another question from Xiaowen. She was also asking what technique or which technique is best used in which situations. Is this like what you've covered earlier?
Yeah. So unfortunately, as I said, I didn't have the time to cover all the different things. Um, are you sharing something, Sydney?
Oh, okay. No, because we're just going on to the Q&A session. I guess because
Can I
Jeremy
share my
asked,
screen?
yes,
I want to
you
share
can.
a slide. So if you can
Yeah.
stop sharing, then I can slide this.
Okay, done. Yep, done.
Okay. Let's see if I can share. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. This will help me answer the question. Okay. So we talked about conditioning, right? So the conditioning is actually preparing you for dealing with real life situations and creating boosts that will help you boost composure, boost access to your skills, and boost your performance in real time. Okay, live. So those things are time specific and situation specific. So for example, social evaluation is a trigger that activates your nervous system. Every time there is a risk of you being socially evaluated, right? For example, a performance review with your manager, or audit or compliance review or something. Okay, that's an evaluation of you. So every time that that happens, your nervous system gets activated. So before social evaluation is a trigger of nervous system. So there are boosts that are designed specifically for that. Okay? After physiological activation is another trigger, but that's an after trigger. An event has already happened, and what are you feeling? You are feeling physically activated because it was a very difficult conversation that you just had. Or you took a very consequential decision. You just took a decision that could potentially result in a huge loss, for instance. Okay? You need a boost that is specific to that situation. So the idea here is that we will, once we have conditioned the nervous system in the gym for each different lever, then we apply that conditioning through the boosts using multiple levers to address loss of composure in a given situation. And the app is designed to help you with all of this. And we can also do a follow-up presentation where I talk in more detail about situational boosts.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Cal. There's also another question by Ming Chun asking how to let go a distracting or a negative thought completely.
So yeah, so again, it's creating distance. It's not engaging with the thought. Um, it's very hard to do if you're doing it for the very first time. But please try this technique that I've outlined during the presentation. As soon as a negative thought comes to your mind, give it a neutral label. Don't let it create a negative bias in your mind. Just give it a neutral label. Okay? If you're
Yeah,
about to, sorry,
no,
if
go ahead.
and even just simply stating the fact of, the technique of creating space with the thought, even just saying, I observe the thought that I have a negative reaction to that. That's it. If you just say that, it's a technique that works because it takes your mind away from the thought. And you can try it. As soon as we finish here, you can, go back and let thoughts come to your mind and try this technique. The other technique, which is more physical in nature, is the visual anchors and the physical anchors. As soon as a thought comes to you, just go to a physical anchor, like the nostril. Just go, put your feet grounded on the floor and just focus your attention on the pressure that you are putting on your feet and on the floor. Just feel the chair as you're sitting on it and how it feels on your sit bones. Just feel the clothing on your shoulders. These are all physical anchors that take your attention away from a distracting thought.
Okay. Earlier, Huimi said the website wasn't working, but thanks, Jeremy, for the link. It works. So then Steve mentioned that the app is not ready for trial yet. And because you said earlier it's going to be launched next month, is it? In May?
Yeah, so you can register to trial the app. So next week, sorry, not next month.
Next week.
So
Next week.
next week we will be launching the pilot app. But if you register, then as soon as it gets launched, you will receive an email with a link as to how to access the app, and you can start trialing it. And as I mentioned, if you provide, and then you'll receive a feedback form. If you fill in the feedback, then you'll get a complimentary subscription to the app, etc., etc. So please help us improve the app because in the end, it's going to help all of us.
Okay. Since there's no question at the chat group, I have a question that came in directly to me. How do I identify it's a composure issue? Or, it could be for us female PMSing or a hormonal issue. So how do you identify that difference?
Ooh. Um, I don't know because I'm not a female, so
On that note, not stressing on any gender issue or anything, because I believe even both genders, we go through a lot of emotions, and sometimes whether it's work related or personal
but it
related,
could be simply that it's a symptom which causes loss of composure. So look, a loss of
yeah.
composure
Okay.
can affect you in many different ways, and that's why we have so many different levers to regulate composure. So it could be that some physical event, some physical thing is happening in your body, which then creates an emotional response, right? And now the idea is, how do we get emotionally stable? How do we come back to an emotional reset? And that's why composure is defined very broadly. That's why composure is that you are cognitive. I'm going back to the definition. And by the way, somebody was asking earlier on to have access to the slides. And so Cindy, you can
Yeah,
probably.
I'll be mentioning that towards the end, yeah, when I
Okay.
close this.
So the idea is that composure is where you are cognitively clear, right? You're thinking very clearly. You're emotionally calm. It means that you're emotionally settled, you're steady, and you are physically regulated, right? So all these things, mental, emotional, physical, this is all part of composure. And many different things could be happening that could cause that loss of composure.
Okay.
But
So
the real important thing is, how do we reset? And that's what we are trying to learn.
yes. So, I mean, it is good that earlier on in your talk, you shared that, it is very stressful today in everything that we do. So, what you have just shared can also be applicable not in a work situation, but also in a personal situation. So, with that, since we're also running out of time, if there's one key takeaway that you would want to share with the audience today, what would that be? Is it the one that you just mentioned, the resetting bit?
Um, well, look, we are all investment professionals. We, as I mentioned at the outset, we talk all the talk. We put so much time and effort optimizing our skills, right? We put so much time and effort optimizing our talents. We optimize investment portfolios all day long. We seek optimized outcomes and so on. I would just submit to all of you, take a little bit of time to think about how to optimize your own performance. Because ultimately, your performance is the gatekeeper to everything else, right? Your decision making is the capability, is the gatekeeper to how you perform for your clients. So start there. You know, think, do some soul searching, think about that, and if you do, then you might come to the same conclusion as I have, that really composure is a very essential performance variable. And the good news, it is trainable, and it is very easily trainable. So include that as part of your overall skill set.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Cal, for sharing your insights with us today. Truly valuable and also thought-provoking. And not just that, it's also a good reminder to all of us to how to stay calm and composed in such a stressful world these days, right? And on top of that, we do appreciate you taking the time to be with us. To our participants, to our audience, thank you as well for your engagement throughout the session. Jeremy asked just now whether we will be sharing out his Cal's presentation materials. The answer is yes, because Cal has been generous to allow his materials to be shared with all of y'all, which we will email out. And with this, we will also share Cal's feedback form in the email link. But the one you see on screen right now is for us, the society, because if you would like us to organize more events like this in the future, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. And yeah, through the QR code you see on the screen. And it will help us to plan our future programs. So Yes, please stay tuned in our social media and newsletters for updates on upcoming sessions and initiatives. So thank you once again for all your time, and we hope to see you at our future events. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time.